Happy morning, my dear children. Now you are into many activities. As the teachers, they are giving you record work as well as notes as well as many assignments. You are engaged there at your home. You are enjoying. I think, or I can say, I can believe that you are enjoying each and every day with the teachers as well as the work which they are assigning to do. Good, my dear children. Go ahead with all these works. So I am here again with botany, going to take chapter 2, sexual reproduction in flowering plants. Before that, we can just recollect what we have studied in our previous class. In the previous class, we have just seen the outline of how the reproduction is taking place in the organism. That is, what is reproduction, how many types are they, and what are the methods of reproduction, and what are the events taking place through, or we can say, in reproduction. Now we are moving into the next session where we are going to study in deep related to the sexual reproduction in flowering plants. So let's start with the session. So here you can see sexual reproduction in flowering plants and chapter at glance. In this chapter we are going to study 5 topics. Number 1, flower, a fascinating organ of angiosperms. Already you know what are angiosperms. We have studied in our 11th standard, or we can say previous class related to angiosperms. Now number 2, pre-fertilization, structure and events. Already the outline of pre-fertilization events we have studied in the previous class in the first chapter. Then next event is fertilization, sync-weaving and triple fusion, which is also called double fertilization. The fourth one is post-fertilization, and the fifth one is apomixis and polyembryony. This term, it will be new for you, as we are going to study this term in this chapter. So we can proceed with the first, flower, a fascinating organ of angiosperm. So here the name indicates flower. You know what are flowers, my dear children? For what purpose they are used? In our day-to-day life, we are using flowers as a symbolic representation, or we can say flowers. In the case of sexual reproduction, we can say sexual reproduction in flowering plants occurs through the specialized organs known as flowers. Flowers are that much important for the plants because only through sexual reproduction they are able to produce the young ones. And these young ones which are produced there, it is produced because of the flowers which are there in the plants. Second thing you can see, flowers are objects of ornamental, social, religious and cultural values. I can say that you may be knowing what is the meaning of ornamental. In our house we used to grow many flowers. In our garden, house garden, there are many flowers, isn't it? Ixora, dahlia, many flowers are there which we used to grow. And related to social, religious, or we can say cultural values also, they are very that much important. Next one, we can say there it is used as symbol for conveying important human feelings such as love, affection and happiness. All these are the general things related to flowers. See, a rose plant, when we are giving to somebody, that rose plant indicates the love or affection or happiness when we give it to somebody, isn't it? So this rose is a flower which is being growing in the rose plant. So that flower is showing that much important in the life of human beings. Next one, but in the case of biologists, what they are defining about flower, we can see. They define flowers as morphological and embryological sites of sexual reproduction. That is, morphologically, that means in the case of morphological means morphologically, what is the meaning of morphologically? The physical part of the flower as well as embryological means embryology. According to the embryology, the flower is giving rise to the new one. Understood? And morphology means there the male and female reproductive organs are present there, which we can see through our eyes. So we can say flowers as morphological and embryological sites of sexual reproduction. So this is the first part which is telling us about a flower. Now we can see the important units of sexual reproduction which is there in the flower, and they are androecium, which is also known as or called as male reproductive organ, and gynoecium, it is also called as or known as female reproductive organ. Now if we are coming to the longitudinal section of a flower, it is a hibiscus flower, which we used to take as a common flower for dissection or for explaining the parts in the case of flowers. In case of the flower, we can see here anther and filament, that is together it is collectively called stamen, and this is the male reproductive part which is called androecium. And here we can see stigma, the long slender stalk is there, that is style, and here you can see a bulge portion at the base, that is ovary. These three parts together comprises the pistil, and pistil is a female reproductive organ known as gynoecium. Now you would have understood what is androecium and what is gynoecium in the case of flower. Got the point, my dear children? Now we can go to the second point of the chapter or the topic, we can say, that is pre-fertilization structure and events. In that we have to study the structure of male reproductive organ as well as the structure of female reproductive organ in detail. First we are going to study about the structure of male reproductive organ, which is also known as androecium. Here we can see stamen, microsporangium, pollen grain and male gametophyte. All these are coming under androecium, or it is the parts, or it is the topics which we are going to study in androecium. So here you can see androecium is composed of stamens, and each stamen consists of a filament, an anther and a connective. When we are coming to the picture, we can see there the structure of androecium, where it is inside that stamen, and the stamen it consists of filament, anther and connective. You can see here anther is there, which is bilobed, it is having two lobes, and it is having a long filament, and the filament is connected to the anther with the tissue, and that is known as connective. I think you would have understood the structure of the stamen. Now here when you can see here in the second part, it is a three-dimensional view of a section of an anther, where you can see the pollen sacs are there, and inside the pollen sacs pollen grains are present there, and this is the structure of anther. This consists of 4 lobes, and each lobe is having pollen sac, and the pollen sac is consisting of pollen grains. Understood? Now we can go to the next part, that is 2 lobes of anther are connected with each other by a connective. Already I told you what is connective. And next thing I also already understood that each anther has 2 lobes, therefore that anther is known as, or it is called dithecus. Dithecus means 2 theca, 2 lobes it is having. That's why it is called dithecus. Now next thing again we have seen in the picture, anther is a 4-sided structure consisting of 4 microsporangia located at the corners of 2 in each lobe, which fuse to form pollen sacs. In the picture before, when I was discussing about the structure of anther or stamen, I have shown you this picture where I told you that anthers are located at each corner, and they consist of pollen sacs, and in the pollen sac we can see pollen grains. I think you would have understood what it is, isn't it? Microsporangia means it is a sac-like structure where microspores are present. and microspores indicates pollen grains. Okay, now next thing we can see the next structure of microsporangium. How microsporangium is formed. As it has been said that anther consists of 4 microsporangium which is located at the corners, isn't it? And 2 microsporangium, they are located in each lobe of the anther. When we are seeing the lobe of anther, we can see 2 corners of the anther, microsporangium, they are located there. And microsporangium, it will be undergoing development, and because of the development taking place in the microsporangium, pollen sacs are formed there. In the case of the structure of microsporangium, when we are going in the deep or detail, we can see that it is surrounded by 4 walls. This is very, very important when we are seeing the board examination. In that board examination, question used to come related to the structure of microsporangium, where the question based on 4 wall layers used to ask in the examination. Here it has been said it is surrounded by 4 wall layers. Number 1, epidermis. Number 2, endothelium. Number 3, it is middle layer, and number 4, it is tapetum. Number 4, it is tapetum. So here we are going to study in detail about the topic. Okay, now here we can see I told you now epidermis, endothelium, middle layer and tapetum. Outer 3 layers means epidermis, endothelium and middle layer. These are the 3 layers which we can see. Just it is situated or it is been formed there outside. And these 3 layers, they perform the function of protection and helps in dehiscence of anther to release the pollen. Dehiscence means helps in opening. Okay, anthers or the pollen sac has to open. Then only the pollen grains, they will be able to move from that place and they can fall onto the female flower so that fertilization will be taking place. So here we can, I repeat again, epidermis, endothelium and middle layer. These are the 3 wall layers which helps to protect the anther. And number 2, they helps to open the pollen sac so that, or we can say helps to open the anther so that pollen grains are released. Now the 4th layer is there, that is tapetum, which is very, very important as it is the innermost layer and it nourishes the developing pollen grains. And the cells of tapetum, they will be having dense cytoplasm and they are binucleate. Binucleate means they will be having 2 nucleus in them. And nourishing. What is the meaning of nourishing? They will be providing all the nutrients for the development of pollen grains. I think, my dear children, you would have understood about the 4 wall layers present in the structure of microsporangium. You can see the figure here, PS of a young anther, where you can see the layers. Epidermis, this is the outermost layer. Endothelium, this is the second layer. Sporogenous tissue, this is the tissue which is present inside the structure of anther. And tapetum is the 4th layer, and after endothelium, the 3rd layer is the middle layer. Okay, so first layer is epidermis, second one is endothelium, 3rd is middle layer, and the 4th one is tapetum. Got it? And here when we are seeing the cross section of this part. A cross section means just we are taking the section of anther, and when we are seeing in an enlarged way, we can again see the same thing: epidermis, endothelium, middle layer, and tapetum. Okay, so this is the structure of young anther or microsporangium, which is having 4 wall layers. Now next thing, I told you about sporogenous tissue, isn't it? So in young anther, you can see group of compactly arranged cells. They will be homogeneous in nature, and those cells will be seen in the center. Just now I showed you the figure in the center of the anther, and those compactly cells which are arranged in the center of each microsporangium is called sporogenous tissue. Now we should know for what purpose we are studying about sporogenous tissue, or for what purpose we are studying about the structure of anther. So we can come to the next topic, that is microsporogenesis. As usual I used to say, when we are speaking this term microsporogenesis, that means genesis means formation. Formation of what? Microspores, and microspores are also known as pollen grains. So here we can see in the biological way how we can define microsporogenesis. The process of formation of microspores from our pollen mother cell, that is PMC. Pollen mother cell is also known as PMC. Okay, and when the pollen mother cell is undergoing meiosis, surely what will happen? Meiosis means we can say that pollen mother cell is diploid, 2n in number, and when it undergoes meiosis, surely we will be getting haploid microspores. That process is known as microsporogenesis. I think, my dear children, you would have understood what is microsporogenesis. Now, when the microspores are formed after the process of microsporogenesis, we can say that they are formed and they are arranging themselves in clusters of 4 cells. They will be formed there and they will be arranging themselves in clusters means group of 4 cells. And this cluster which is formed there of 4 cells is called microspore tetrad. Tetrad means 4. So 4 microspores, when they are arranged there in a proper way or in a linear way, we can say it as microspore tetrad. Now, when the anther matures, what will happen? The microspores dissociates from each other. Now they are first, what happened? They were there in group, they were there in clusters, isn't it? Now when the anther will mature, it will reach to the maturity, that time what happens to the microspore? It dissociates. Dissociates means they separate from each other. And what will happen? They develop into pollen grains. I told you that pollen grains are developed from the microspores and when they dissociate from each other, isn't it? Now we are going to study the structure of pollen grain. Pollen grains, they represent the male gametophyte. Again, it is very, very important, my dear children. It represents the male gametophyte. It is the first cell and it is the cell which represents male gametophyte. And when we are seeing the structure of pollen grain, we can see that it is covered with 2 layered walls. Number 1, exine, and second wall is intine. From the name itself, we can see that this is the outer layer and this is the inner layer. Now when we are going to the outer layer, we can see it is hard and it is made up of sporopollen. Again, this term is very, very important, as this question related to sporopollen used to come in the board examination. So what is sporopollen? It is been said that these are the cells which are resistant for the organic material known, and it can withstand high temperature and strong acids and alkalis. So that much powerful this tissue, or we can say this group of cells which is called sporopollen, and this is the cell which we can say that it is found in exine, which make the exine strong and hard, isn't it? Now, as it is been said that there is an aperture seen in the exine. When we are seeing the structure of pollen grain, we can see in certain areas of the exine there certain small holes are there, or we can say apertures are seen there on the exine, and these apertures are called germ pores. So these sporopollenins, they are absent at germ pores which are present there in the exine. Now it is been said that because of the presence of sporopollen, pollen grains are well preserved as fossils. This is the question. It will become a question there in the board examination, and the answer you have to write this one. That is, it has been asked that pollen grains are well preserved as fossils. What is the reason behind it? So you have to answer related to sporopollen in the examination, as it is the outermost. It is present there in the outermost layer of pollen grain, exile, and it is most resistant organic material. Next thing, it withstand high temperature, as well as it can withstand strong acids as well as alkali. So that is about the exile, which is the outermost layer of pollen grain. Again, before moving into the intine, I will tell you about the structure of mature pollen grain in a diagrammatic way, where we can see this is the outermost layer, exile. You can see it is not smooth; it is a rough surface. Okay, we can see here, and in between this exile, we can see germ pore there, isn't it? And below that is this is exile, and then the second layer, which you can see there in the pollen grain, is intine. Understood, my dear children? And related to vegetative nucleus and generative nucleus, or related to vegetative cell or generative cell, we are going to study later in this chapter itself. So this is the structure of mature pollen grain, where we can see exile and intine as well as germ pore. Now the second part, or the inner layer of pollen grain, is intine, and this layer is thin and it is made up of cellulose and pectin. Not much important, as I told you about exile. Okay. Now next one, we can see that a mature pollen grain contains or it consists of two cells. In the picture we are seeing vegetative cell and generative cell. Vegetative cell, we can say that it is bigger in size and it is having abundant food reserve, and will be having a nucleus which is irregular in shape. So as I told you, in the structure of pollen grain, there will be two cells, vegetative cell and generative cell. In the case of vegetative cell, we can say it is bigger in size and it is having lot of food reserve. And next thing, it will be having large but irregular nucleus. Okay. Now you can see again here the structure, or we can say the two cell stage of pollen grain, where we can see this is the vegetative cell, this part is vegetative cell, and you can see here a small area, this is generative cell, which is present inside the cytoplasm of vegetative cell. Again I repeat, in the pollen grain we can see two cells, vegetative cell and generative cell, and vegetative cell is larger in size, which is having an irregular nucleus, and next thing we can see generative cell, which is present inside the cytoplasm of the vegetative cell, which is more smaller in size. Now next thing we can say that the nucleus present there in the generative cell is spindle shaped. The nucleus which is present there in the generative cell is spindle shaped. It is small in size and is floats in the cytoplasm of vegetative cell. This is about generative cell in the case of pollen grain. Now, what do you mean by viability? That is the period till the pollen grain will be active or functional. That is called viability. So we are going to study or learn about viability of pollen grain. Here it is being said that pollen grain, they are highly, or we can say they are, the viability of pollen grain ranges from 1 day or from a minute to the hours or days. So here it is being said the viability of pollen grain is highly variable. Variable means it will not be similar for all the flowers in which the pollen grains are present there. The duration will be changing there depending on the circumstances or environmental factor, and to some extent depends on the prevailing temperature and humidity also. It is depending, that is to a extent or to a period of this thing, when if a temperature or humidity is changing there, sometimes the viability of pollen grains also change. Therefore, it is said that it is highly variable depending on the external factor. Now, next thing related to the pollen bag, we can see that has been said that it is possible to store pollen grains of a large number of species for years, and these pollen grains can be stored in the liquid nitrogen at a temperature of minus 196 degrees centigrade. In this temperature, if we are able to store pollen grain, these pollen grains later on can be used there for further research work or for further activities which are taking place in the flowers. Such stored pollen can be used as pollen banks. That means in the pollen, you know what is pollen, what is bank. Bank is the area where you used to store money, isn't it? Same way in the case of pollen also, pollen grains can be stored there in the pollen bags, and whenever needed it will be utilized by taking from the pollen bag. So that is about pollen bag. Here this part is very important. That is, the pollen grains, they can be stored there in the pollen bank, but the liquid nitrogen is needed there for storing the pollen grain, and number 2, the temperature, that is minus 196 degree centigrade. That is about the pollen grain, and here we end up with the second part related to the male reproductive structure. Now the third part, that is related to pre-fertilization structure and event. In that itself we are moving on, my dear children. But in that we have studied or we learned, we understood what are androecium, what is male reproductive parts, stamen, pollen grain we have studied. Now we are going to study the next, that is the female reproductive part, that is gynoecium, and we are going to study about pistil, megasporangium, which is also known as ovule, megasporogenesis, embryosac, which is also known as female gametophyte. Shall I ask you one question? Name the male gametophyte. Miduna. Yes, you are correct. It is pollen grain, isn't it? Now, here we are going to study about gynoecium in detail. Gynoecium, which is also known as pistil, represents the female reproductive part, and it is composed of carpels. Already we have studied previously, or we can see in the previous class in +1 science, isn't it? Now, parts of gynoecium, there are 3 parts: stigma, style and ovary. Already I have shown you in this session when I was taking about the flower, where I have shown you the 3 parts of gynoecium. Now we are going to see the parts of gynoecium. Here you can, this is a textbook picture. In the textbook this picture is there, you can go through it. There you can see a dissected flower of hibiscus showing the pistil, where you can see stigma, style and ovary, isn't it? Next one, we can see multicarpellary syncarpous pistil of pepperwort flower. Same way we can see multicarpellary apocarpous gynoecium of mechilae, which is again a flower. And next one, we can see a diagrammatic view of a typical anatropous ovule, where we have to study the structure of ovule in detail in the later class. So this is about the parts. With parts means this is the main thing which you have to focus now. That is stigma, style and ovary. Okay. Multicarpellary as well as apocarpous, syncarpous, all these things you have studied in your +1 class. Now the next part is structure of megasporangium, which is also called ovule. Just now I showed you the structure of ovule, which I told you that we are going to study later. We can see here. We can see that a small structure which is attached to the placenta within the ovary. Inside the ovary there is a small structure, and that is attached to the placenta, and that structure is attached to the ovary by means of stalk, and it is called funicle. Now between the ovule and funicle there is a junction, and that is called hilum. And next one, again we can see when we are entering deep into the structure, we can see a multicellular mass of tissue which is present there, and it is having an abundant food material. That multicellular mass of tissue is called nucellus, and this nucellus, it is protected or it is been enclosed by one or two integument. That is envelope we can say, and it is called integument, or directly we can say it as integument. And this integument, except at the tip, that means it is covering or encircling the nucleus, but at the tip there will be opening there in the integument area, and that is called micropyle. And opposite to the micropyle, that is if there is a opening at the tip, opposite to it, that is at the base, or if the opening is at the base, we can see opposite to the base is the tip. So it is said that opposite to the micropyle, we can say there is where the integument originates from the basal part of the ovule is chalazal. So there are two regions in the structure of ovule. One is the micropylar end and the other one is chalazal end. Micropylar end is the opening where it is said that it is seen at the tip of the ovule, and just opposite to it, that is at the basal region, we can see another end, and that is called chalazal end, or it is also known as chalaza. Now, next thing we can see, there is a single embryo sac in the nucleus formed from a megaspore. When a megaspore is produced there, it will be haploid, and in that we can see a single embryo sac which is having a nucleus. Okay, now we can see what is megasporogenesis. As we are going deep into the structure of the formation of megaspore, we should know what is megasporogenesis, how megaspores are formed there. I think you would have understood what is the structure of ovule. See my dear children, here you can see the structure back. Isn't it? This is the structure of an anatropous ovule, where I told you about the funicle. It's the stalk. Number 2, I told you about hilum, that is ovule, and the funicle, they are attached with each other with the hilum. And then I told you integument is there. These are the two integuments. Okay, and then I told you that nucleus is present. You can see nucleus is present there, and this nucleus is being protected by these integuments. Next thing, in the nucleus we can see the embryo sac, and as this is the micropylar end, opposite to it there is a chalazal. So this is the structure of ovule, which is again very important. You have to learn, you have to understand about it, and you have to draw and study, because this picture used to ask in the question paper in the board examination. Now I think you would have understood what is ovule and what are the parts present in the ovule. Coming back to the next part, that is megasporogenesis. Again, same thing I will be repeating from the term or from the word megasporogenesis. We can split it. Megasporogenesis. Genesis means formation, and what is formed there? Megaspores are formed there. So the process of formation of megaspores from the megaspore mother cell, that is MMC. We have studied about microspore mother cell, isn't it? Pollen grain, PMC. The same way here it is MMC, megaspore mother cell. And how it is happening? By meiotic cell division. So surely we can say this MMC is diploid in nature. It is having 2n number of chromosomes, and this will undergo meiosis, so that megaspores are produced there, and that process is called, or it is known as megasporogenesis. Megasporogenesis. Okay. Now next thing we can see how the process of formation of female gametophyte is taking place. In detail we can study. Here what happens? A single cell is differentiated as a megaspore mother cell at the micropylar end of the nucleus. We have seen there in the nucleus compactly arranged cells will be there, and among these compactly arranged cells at the micropylar end, a single cell will be becoming functional, and that single cell will be functioning as megaspore mother cell. Okay. Now next thing what happens? 4 haploid megaspores are formed when the diploid mother cell undergoes meiosis and are arranged in linear tetrad. So the process of formation of megaspore is taking place here. Meiotic division will be taking place, and later on what will happen? We will be getting the 4 haploid megaspores which are arranged there in a linear way. They are in a 4 as a 4 cell. So as they are arranged in a linear way and they are 4 cells, therefore they are called linear tetrad. Understood? Now we can move to the next. What is being said there? As they are 4 in number, isn't it? 4 cells are there. Among those 4 cells, one of the megaspore is functional. What will happen to the other 3? They degenerate. That means they will become non-functional. They don't have any work there now. Okay. Only among the 4, only one will be present there, which will be very active. Will be very energetic, like you people, isn't it? So it will be doing its work and it will be moving to the next process. So here again we can see the functional megaspore develops into female gametophyte. Later on, this functional megaspore, which is one there, it is one, and that functional megaspore will be moving into many divisions, and later on it will be forming a female gametophyte, which is called as embryo sac. Now what do you mean by monosporic embryo sac? From the name itself, monosporic means from single cell. What happened? Embryo sac is being developed there. That is developed from a single haploid megaspore. That is called monosporic embryo sac. And the common type of embryo sac which is being developed there, we can see its development in the flowering plants. In the flowering plants, this is the common type of embryo sac which we used to see there in the plants. Here you can see, I told you, micropyladen, nucellus, MMC, megaspore mother cell is present there, and this megaspore mother cell will be undergoing cell division, and we can see here megaspore dyads are formed there. That is, one cell will be dividing and forming 2 cells. Okay, next one, this cell again, this megaspore dyad again will be undergoing cell division, and we can see here 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 megaspores. They are arranged linearly and they are 4 in number. Therefore, they are called megaspore tetrad or linear tetrad. So this is what we have studied just now. Later on, we are now into the next part, that is the development of embryo sac. How the embryo sac has developed. Okay, so we can see here I told you 4 cells are there, megaspores, isn't it? In this, the 3 will be degenerating, only 1 will be functional. Now this functional megaspore will be undergoing again cell division, and you can see 2 cells. These 2 cells again dividing and producing 4 cells, and these 4 cells again dividing and producing 8 cells. So we can see in a sac there are 8 cells. Okay. Now these 8 cells, they have to arrange themselves, and that sac is nothing but it is a embryo sac. So they will be arranged there in the form of synergids, egg, central cell, polar cell, antibodies. And we can see at last ultimately the structure of embryo sac, where the cells are arranged themselves as antibodies of chalazolet, and in the micropylar end we can see synergids, egg, as well as in the center we can see polar nuclei or the central cell. So here again I will be repeating about how the embryo sac is formed there. It has been said that functional megaspore is the first cell of female gametophyte, and the nucleus of this megaspore divide to form 2 nucleate embryo sac. Already we have seen in the structure. Now again the nucleus of that cell present in the embryo sac will divide by free nuclear mitotic division to form 4 nucleate, and later on it becomes 8 nucleate stages of embryo sac. Now we have to see how the cells, these 8 nucleate structure or the cells which is seen in the sac-like structure, which is called embryo sac, how they are arranged themselves. So distribution of cells within the embryo sac. Here we can see the 3 cells, they are grouped together among, or we can see out of 8, 3 cells are there which will be coming together, they will be forming a group and they will be arranging themselves at the micropylar end and form the 3-cell egg apparatus. 3-cell egg apparatus means in that one will be the egg cell and the other 2 will be the synergids. Understood? Related to synergid, I will be explaining you here itself. Okay. So again I will repeat. Out of 8 cells present in the sac, 3 cells they will be coming together in a group and they will be arranging themselves at the micropylar end and they will be forming a 3-cell. We can say it as egg apparatus, which is n in number. This is very important. Okay. The quality of each you have to study it's very important, as when we are seeing the examination paper we can see these questions there. Okay. Now next, it consists of 2 synergids and 1 egg cell which is female gamete at the center. I showed you the picture where we have seen 2 synergids and between a egg cell. Now next thing related to the synergids, you can see there it have a special cellular technique called filiform apparatus which helps in guiding the pollen tube into the synergids. That is, in the embryo sac we can see synergids, and with the synergids there are cellular thickening or special hair-like structures are present there. In the area of synergids, in the case of micropylar end we can see synergids and there we can see hair-like structures. Okay, and these hair-like structures are called filiform apparatus. And what is their function? When the pollen grain matures and when it reaches the ovule, isn't it? Stigma it will be falling and from there it will enter into the flower. And when it enters it will produce a pollen tube and in the pollen tube 2 male gametes will be there, isn't it? And that male gamete has to enter into the embryo sac where egg cell is present there, where it has to fertilize with the egg cell. So during that time, what happens when this pollen tube reaches the embryo sac at the micropylar end, the synergid is having a filiform apparatus which is hair-like structures. These hair-like structures guide the pollen tube into the synergid so that the male gamete it will be able to release inside the embryo sac where egg cell is present for fusion. Understood, my dear children? So that is about the filiform apparatus, which is very important again. Now next thing we can see. So here we have studied now 3 cells they have arranged together at a micropylar end which is called egg apparatus. Okay, out of 8 it is. Now the other 3 cells at the chalazion end form 3-cell antipodals which are again n in number. So out of 3 of them has been there as egg apparatus. Now again 3 is there which will be seen at the chalazion end which is opposite to the micropylar in the case of embryo sac, and these cells they are called antipodals. Till this date nobody has given any information related to the function of antipodals. It has been said that it will get degenerate when the fertilization process takes place. Okay, that is only known related to antipodals. Now the remaining, so out of 8, 6 cells have been arranged themselves to the micropylar as well as to the chalazion. Now the remaining 2 nuclei or the cells which are present there, they will be moving toward the center of the embryo sac and they form a single large central cell with 2 polar nuclei, that is n plus n. So a single nuclei means n. Again another single nuclei means again n. So n plus n. Later on it becomes 2n when it gets mature. So like this we can see polar nuclei or polar cells are arranged at the center of the embryo sac which are 2 in number. So the mature embryo cell consists of 8 nucleate and 7 cell structure. 7 cells will be present there, but in the 7 cells we can see 8 nucleus. That means on the micropylar end 3, chalazal end 3, in the central part of the embryo cell 2 nucleus will be there, but the cell will be 1. So my dear children, we are going to see the diagrammatic representation of development of female gametophyte, that is embryo sac. As we know that in the flower, ovule is present and it includes megaspore mother cell. This megaspore mother cell is diploid and it will be undergoing cell division, and later on when it is moving with the cell division 1 and cell division 2, we can see 4 haploid daughter cells are formed, and these 4 haploid daughter cells, when they are produced, they are known as linear tetrad. Among these 4 haploid daughter cells, 3 will be degenerating and only 1 functional megaspore will be present there, which will be functional, and this will be undergoing mitotic division to produce 2 cells, then 4 cells, and then lastly 8 cell structure. This 8 cell structure will be arranging itself in the embryo sac, where 3 cells will be seen at the micropylar end and 3 will be seen at the chalazal end and 2 will be seen the central part of the embryo sac. This is the arrangement of cells in the embryo sac, and this is the development of female gametophyte embryo cell. So my dear children, here we wind up with this session. I believe or I trust that you have understood all the topic which I have taken today, and related to the assignment or homework which I have to give to you based on this topic is: number 1, you have to write down or jot down the notes based on this topics. Number 2, you have to draw the structure of anther, that is anther means the structure of anther, where stamen we have studied, and you have to draw the structure of stamen. Number 2, you have to draw the structure of ovule, you have to draw the structure of embryo sac. So these are the assignment to you, and I will be coming back to you in the next class. Till then, goodbye, have a great day. Thank you.